You know that flinch when someone jokes you're getting old the second you turn 30? Here's what's strange. Archaeologists have dug up ordinary Roman tombstones belonging to everyday people in their 60s and 70s, not emperors, not philosophers, regular Romans. So why does everyone believe ancient people were practically elderly by 30? Around 220 AD, a Roman jurist named Ulpian built a life table, a set of calculations estimating how long people at different ages could expect to live, mostly for tax and inheritance purposes. His numbers get quoted everywhere today. Average life expectancy in ancient Rome, about 25 to 30 years. And so the myth took hold. Old at 30, elderly by 40, a toothless, hunched-over 35-year-old shuffling through the forum. That picture is almost completely wrong. The number itself is real. Ulpian's math checks out. But a population average isn't a description of any single life. Bury enough infants next to a handful of 80-year-olds, and the average collapses, even though nobody in that village actually died at 30. It's the same trick as a room with 1 billionaire and 9 broke students. The average net worth is in the millions. It describes no one in the room. So, if that number never meant what we think it meant, what did a Roman's life actually look like once they cleared childhood? And why does the real story sound less like ancient history and a lot more like the reason we're all still repeating this myth today? Here's why that number is so misleading. And it comes down to simple math. Life expectancy at birth isn't a measure of how long adults lived. It's an average across every birth, including the ones that ended almost immediately. In the ancient world, close to a third of children didn't make it to age 10. That single fact drags the average down to 30, even though almost nobody actually died at 30. Demographic historians have a better tool for this. It's called life expectancy at 15, and it asks a different question entirely. If you survived childhood, how much longer did you actually have? For Romans who made it to 15, the answer often stretched into their 50s, 60s, sometimes further. Not rare exceptions, common enough that elder was a real, respected social role. And this isn't just ancient math. It's happening to you right now. Your own life expectancy at birth is dragged slightly downward by infant mortality statistics, even in the safest hospital on Earth. You've been living inside a mildly misleading average since your first breath. So has everyone you know. Ulpian wasn't wrong. He measured exactly what he set out to measure. We're the ones who turned his number into a myth. If everything you've heard about Roman life expectancy is wrong, the next question is simple. What was actually killing people young if it wasn't old age creeping in early? The answer isn't old age. It was something far more immediate. There's a common assumption baked into how we picture the ancient world, that people's bodies wore out faster back then, built for a shorter run. It feels intuitive. No modern medicine, harder labor, dirtier water. Surely biology itself just gave out sooner. It didn't. Human aging hasn't meaningfully changed in thousands of years. A Roman senator's cells aged at roughly the rate yours do right now. The body wasn't the problem. Getting through the early gauntlet was. Anthropologists studying skeletal remains use something called the paleo-demographic mortality curve. It shows death in the ancient world was front-loaded, brutally concentrated in the first 5 years of life, then again around childbirth for women, then again during famine or violence. Clear those years, and your odds of reaching old age weren't far off from a pre-industrial farmer centuries later. Childbirth deserves its own moment here. Some bioarchaeological studies estimate a significant share of women in ancient populations died from pregnancy or delivery complications, often in their teens or 20s. No transfusion, no emergency surgery, no antibiotics if infection set in. A single bad birth could end a healthy young woman in hours. That risk alone drags population averages down hard, and it has nothing to do with wrinkles or worn-out joints. There's a modern echo worth sitting with. Even today, maternal mortality remains one of the sharpest dividers between countries with strong healthcare access and countries without it. Same mechanism, 2,000 years apart. They weren't dying of old age. They were dying before old age ever arrived, which means somewhere out there should be proof that ancient people expected to grow old. Not estimates, proof, carved in stone. Turns out that proof has been sitting in plain sight for centuries. Roman tombstones routinely recorded age at death, and archaeologists have cataloged thousands of them. The inscriptions don't read like a society shocked that someone lived past 30. They read the opposite way. Ages of 60, 70, even into the 80s show up often enough that historians consider them unremarkable. Cicero, writing his essay on old age in his own 60s, described aging as a natural, expected stage of a full life, not some rare bonus round. The evidence keeps stacking up. Seneca died around age 69. Augustus lived to 75, a fact Romans respected, not as a freak accident, but as the kind of long life a fortunate, healthy person could reasonably expect. The historian Livy is believed to have lived into his mid-70s. Ordinary tombstones from Roman Britain and North Africa list everyday citizens dying at 62, 68, 71, carved by grieving families who clearly weren't treating that lifespan as impossible. It's a bit like judging a whole marathon by the runners who collapse in the first mile. You'd assume nobody finishes, but the ones who get past that early stretch often go the full distance. Even further back, skeletal analysis from Neolithic and Bronze Age burial sites shows individuals who lived into the 6th or 7th decade, identifiable through bone density loss and joint wear consistent with genuine old age, not injury or disease. Here's the wild part. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer societies today, like the Hadza in Tanzania, have found that once individuals survive childhood, their remaining lifespan curve looks remarkably close to people in industrialized nations, minus modern medicine. A living echo of exactly what the Roman tombstones suggest. Grandparents weren't rare. They were expected, present, useful. So if 60 and 70 were within normal reach for anyone who cleared the early gauntlet, the everyone died at 30 myth isn't just a rounding error. It's hiding something more interesting about who these long-lived people actually were. Here's the part nobody expects. Surviving to old age in the ancient world left a mark, one you're still carrying right now. Think about what it actually took to become the person on a tombstone reading 68 or 71. Your immune system had to beat childhood infections with zero medical backup. Your body had to survive famine years with no buffer, no supplements. If you were a woman, you had to survive childbirth, maybe several times, with nothing but luck and whoever was in the room. Every single ancestor of yours, going back thousands of generations, cleared that exact gauntlet. Every one. Miss just one link in that chain, and you simply wouldn't exist. That's not a metaphor. Population geneticists studying ancient DNA have found signatures of intense selective pressure in human immune genes, pressure shaped directly by the infections and famines that were killing people young. Survivors weren't just lucky. Some carried slightly different immune variants, and those variants passed down generation after generation, quietly built into the people alive today, into you. So the myth of the fragile ancient body has it backward. The people who reached old age weren't the exception. They were shaped by ferocious filtering, and their survival wrote itself straight into your genetic code. But surviving wasn't the only advantage of living longer. Older adults also made everyone around them more likely to survive. Anthropologists call this the grandmother hypothesis, the idea that older women past childbearing age dramatically improved their grandchildren's odds by gathering food and passing down knowledge. Evidence from multiple hunter-gatherer populations backs this up. If it's true, long life wasn't just possible in the ancient world. It may have been actively selected for, because grandparents made everyone else more likely to survive. Which means that 60-year-old Roman on the tombstone wasn't beating the odds. She might be one of the reasons the rest of her family made it at all. So think back to that flinch, the one you feel turning 30. It turns out you inherited that number from a Roman tax calculation, not from biology, and definitely not from how Romans understood their own lives. Ancient Rome and today aren't as far apart as the myths suggest. A Roman who survived childhood could reasonably expect decades more, much like you can today. The difference isn't the body, it's what stands between birth and old age. For them, it was infection, childbirth, famine, violence. For you, most of that gauntlet was quietly removed before you were even old enough to know it existed. But the similarity underneath is the part worth keeping. Every culture has needed its elders. The Roman senator advising younger magistrates, the grandmother in a hunter-gatherer camp keeping a toddler alive, the 70-year-old down the street who still remembers how things used to work. Long life was never a modern invention. It was always the point. We just built better odds of getting there. And the contrast is simple. Ulpian never lied to us. He measured exactly what he set out to measure. We're the ones who took a number built for tax purposes and turned it into a myth about fragile, short-lived people. The truth was carved on tombstones the whole time, in ages like 68 and 71, waiting for anyone to actually read them. So the next time someone jokes that 30 is old, remember this. For a Roman who reached adulthood, life was often just getting started. 30 was never humanity's finish line. It was only the number we misunderstood.